All right, hi, welcome to the second kind of video of the series that I'm putting together for personal financial planning. This is a free video series for anyone who's interested. Specifically, it's going to be I gear it towards individuals that might be in recovery. So if that's not applicable for you, there's still a lot of good information in the video series that hopefully you can ascertain. Week two, we're going to be talking about the lasting impact of financial wellness, why you should care, and a big topic for today is going to be compound interest. So we'll jump into it here. Just to recap from the first video, we talked about in terms of building financial wellness, uh, most individuals are going to build wealth in a very systematic way. There's kind of, in my experience, 10 plus years as a financial advisor, handling over $400 million at a major firm. Uh, these are things that I noticed were very common in how individuals built wealth over time. These are the steps that I took personally to become financially independent. And I think it's very, very helpful. It's definitely a key point to follow these steps in order because it radically reduces the amount of risk to your financial wellness if you accomplish these in order. And these go from basically from bottom up. So you're going to want to go, start at 1, 2, 3, and move up kind of the ladder here. Good decision making will create financial wellness, and poor decision making will leave you poor. There's kind of no good way to go about that, but other than saying that, individuals that don't make responsible choices with their money tend to not do very well from a net worth standpoint. When evaluating financial decisions, I would try to look at especially your micro decisions or even your major decisions in terms of percentages and not dollars and cents. This was something that when I started to do this, it made a very big impact for me. Uh, when I say this, in the last week I used the water example that you have a bottle of water, you go to the gas station, bottle of water is $1, and they have the fancy water that's $3, right? To accomplish the goal or the reason for which I am buying the water is to satisfy thirst, right? The $1 bottle of water is going to do that. But for the designer water, right, the $2 bottle, um, you know, if one bottle of water is $1 and one bottle of water is $2, if you just look at it, you know, oh, it's only $1 more. But when you think of it in percentage terms, that is 100% more. It's 100% more expensive. And when you can start to look at things in this way, especially when it comes later on when we start talking about investing, this will be important because although maybe you had $100 and it turned into $200, right? And you might think, well, that's only a $100 gain. From an investment standpoint, that's a 100% gain. That's a very good investment, depending on how long it took to get, to that point. But I would encourage you, especially in spending, and especially kind of in these early kind of steps here, to start looking at your micro spending decisions, right? The bananas, the food costs, gasoline costs, utilities or phone providers, right? instead of looking at how much does it cost more relative to another option in strict dollar and cents terms, to look at it and take the extra step and just calculate what percentage wise, how much percentage wise does it cost more, and trying in terms of this may not be applicable for everyone, but tying decision making to sobriety, I know for myself when I was not sober, uh, it resulted in more poor decisions. It resulted in more financial stress, and that for many can lead you deeper down into this essentially addiction trap, the feeling of hopelessness, the feeling of self-contempt, the feeling that I'll never be able to change my situation for the better because I have this either crushing debt, or I don't make very much, or I don't have very much in my net worth. There's just no chance. This can definitely lead to relapse. So these feelings can start to contribute to relapse, and that's certainly something we don't want. So, in my opinion, financial health is an important part of overall mental health, overall, um, especially for us in recovery, aiding our kind of journey to sustainable long-term recovery. What does financial wellness look like and lead to? I think it's important to kind of see, at least it was for me, to see what the outcomes potentially could be. And I think the best way to show this is not through necessarily testimonials, but in actual dollar terms, to be able to see a very important way, if not the most important concept in all of kind of personal finance, and really in a lot of parts of finance in general, it's compound interest. If you take anything away from this video today, it would be the concept of compound interest. Um, there are a lot of quotes. Albert Einstein had a quote that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who learn to control it, something to the effect of learn how to control the world. Those who don't know how to use it or don't understand it become victims to it. So I want to just go and we'll jump into a compound interest calculator here. Um, and I want to show you this. This looks like a lot here. It's really not. I'll try to make this hopefully look a little bit easier. Don't worry about any of this stuff. Don't worry about the ads. Really, it's just this right here. This part right here in blue. This is what we want to kind of focus on. And a compound interest calculation has a couple of inputs here. One is the initial investment. So let's assume an initial investment of 0. And we're going to start putting money away towards savings, right? We're starting at 0. We're going to start putting some money away. And let's say we're able to do this monthly, and we can put $200 away. That's what we're able to contribute. This is just, do I contribute at the beginning of the month or the period, right? If you're using monthly versus annual. Am I putting it away at the beginning of the period or at the end of the period? And that does have a effect on the calculation. It's not major. I wouldn't worry about this. I would just worry about the monthly contribution, the amount we're contributing per period, the initial investment, if any, what is the interest rate, what's the compound, how frequently does it compound, and what is the investment length. Okay, so let's say we're going to contribute $200 a month, and we'll say an interest rate of 10%. Now, why do I use 10%? S&P 500, return, right? So it's generally accepted. I do have to preface, this is not financial advice. This is more financial education. But it's generally accepted that if we go to really just about anything you'll see here, find on Google, the S&P 500, kind of the average it has done, and average is around, it's about 10%. So 10% is going to be used in most, if you're investing in like just a straight S&P 500 index or similar stock index that's diversified. It's not super important. Just S&P 500 is a very popular way to get exposure to investments. It's an investment of itself. I'm trying to explain this in a way that for someone who might be novice makes sense. It's a very standard stock index to use really when discussing relatively like kind of how the stock market is doing or expected return of just a broad diversified kind of stocks essentially. So let's say 10%, and let's say that we're in our 20s, right? And maybe we want to use this money in 30 years. So we'll say 30 times 12, right? That's 360. That would be 360 months. We're not going to worry about taxes, inflation. I'm going to put that at 0 right now because we just want to see how much, if I contribute $200 per month every year, or excuse me, every month for 30 years, and it grows at a 10% clip, what does that look like? So we click on the calculate here, and we get to 415. So that would be your ending balance at the end of that 30-year period at $200 of monthly contribution. Now, what I want to kind of really draw the attention to is, and why I really like this calculator. It's on calculator.net. I'll put a link in the description so that you guys have access to it. If you'd like to play around, I would encourage you to play around with it because it's really, to me at least, it's very interesting. The ending balance of 415, right? How much of that was due to that $200 in contributions we were making every month over those 30 years? Well, only $72,000 of that was principal. Principal is just the word that we use to say of our kind of our own money out of our own pocket that we put into an account or investment type, right? How much did I actually outlay and how much was interest or growth, right? And here we see that 83% of the ending balance was due to growth. It was due to it was due to growth on that principal over time. And here's a really cool chart here. So you can see at first it's a lot of our own contributions, a lot of principal. But once you start getting in, and this is why it's important that for younger individuals especially, and these video series, I think this topic in general is really geared towards the younger individuals because you have the biggest benefit, the biggest factor of compound interest of all is time. It's how long can you allow the money to really be compounding. And you'll notice at first, in the first 5 years, a lot of the total amount is contributions. But as we start to get a compounding effect, which would take place at about year 7, right? Where you'd start to get a doubling. Things begin to start doubling on each other. Um, that's where you start to see the green line grow significantly, and in the last, time frame here, it's very significant in how much is attributable to interest versus how much is your own contributions. And then what's also really cool is there's a accumulation schedule. You can even look at it from a monthly to see how much over time, right? So if we go to like year 10, right, on a monthly standpoint, this is how much the the interest or the growth is occurring over time, right? So it's a really cool, it has a lot of good information, but let's look at another example. Let's look at, so we saw at 30 years. Well, what if we were to do 35 years? Let's see, and especially like these ending years, right? Let's just add, well, we won't change anything else, but we'll just add an additional 5 years. So that would be 60 months, but we'll do it here just to show you. 35 years, right, times 12, because there's 12 months in a year. So that'd be 420. So another 60 months on 360, so 420, right? And we were at an ending balance of 415. Let's see how those additional 5 years can make a difference once we get to these kind of tail ends, right? So we're at 601. We were at 360, right? 360 was 415. 420 is 685, right? 415. And what I'm doing here is 685,000 minus 415, and we're going to get $270,000 was made in 5 years at the tail end here. So if you're in your 20s, right, say you're 20 years old, and we did this at 35 years plus 35, that would put you at 55 years old. At $200 a month, starting really in your 20s, or when you turn 20, you have 685. Now, what's important to understand, and you need a little bit more of a complex calculator to do this, but individuals, as you get older, right? As you get older, your earnings over the course of your career is going to likely increase as you get older, as you get more training, as you get promotions. Over the course of your career, where this is very young, we're young here, and then we're more established in careers. Maybe there's job changes, and a lot of things can happen, but generally, as individuals get older, their earnings will increase. So 200, maybe you start at 200, and again, it takes a little bit more of a complex calculator to do this, but this will increase over time. This is assuming that you only kept it at $200 per month for the entirety of that time. So let's look at, well, what if, I don't know, what if we were able to do $350 per month? And we'll do the 360, right? Well, now we're at 727. We did increase in total principal, and that's at 30 years. And this would be at 35 years at 350. and you're at about a million or 1.2, just about. At $350 per month. And that would be, if you're starting at 20, you would be a millionaire at 55. Now, what I really want to emphasize is if you follow this, if you do these things, if you do these things, it will not take 420 months to get to this, because you will be able to increase monthly contributions much more rapidly if you follow these steps. And that is the goal. Personal finance, wealth accumulation, so much of it is tied to this. I would say 75 to 80%, being generous, is attributable to this one calculator. This is where it happens. If we can increase this, and you start fast, or you start when you're young, time, monthly contribution, initial investment amount, interest rate. So let's talk about these. I'm going to take a snip of this. All right, so we're just going to take a snip of that. Oops. Do here. We'll just put this in. I can kind of draw on it. Oops. Let's talk about things. Initial investment. Now, you might not have a lot of control over that. You might just be starting. So initial investment might really be zero, and that's okay. Monthly and annual contributions. These are the ones that you have a pretty good amount of control over. And why that is because the more you are able to bring your expenses in line to a goal, the more you are able to save. The more you are able to improve your income potential, which is also why on here we need to, step one, focus on generating income greater than expenses. And in the last video we talked about how either going to college or going to trade school or doing something, getting certificates towards a particular field, doing something that improves your employment prospects, but also improves your ability to generate income. If you have certificates or training or experience, you should be, getting paid more and generating income. This is kind of like, this is the gasoline for the engine that we're creating here. You can kind of think of this as an engine, and the engine needs gasoline, and the gasoline is income. Income, this is not the best drawing, but income is it's the fuel. And the greater you can have the income versus the expenses. And these are two areas that you have some fairly, maybe not complete control, but some fairly large control over, versus the other aspects of a compound interest calculator, right? Interest rate, there's some degree of control, or the compound, the amount of expected return. Some degree of control, but none of us are able to know exactly what the stock market's going to do, or any other investment that's worth investing in for that matter. We have limited control in what the market will do, but we do have some degree of probability based, right? So we know over a long period of time, a diversified, broad-based stock portfolio generally will have an average return of about 10%. And the longer you give that, the longer you give that, the more likely the mean or the average is likely to occur, especially over the long periods of kind of data that we have on the stock market. So the point I'm trying to make, maybe not so eloquently, is these are things that you have degrees of control over. This is something that once, yes, you can choose your investments, and to an extent, I guess you could argue that, by your investment selection, there's some degree of control, but in terms of what the market actually does, we really don't have a lot of control, or how the investment actually performs, or how the manager of that investment actually performs. There is a relinquishing of control there. Investment length and amount, these are things that are a little bit more in terms of what we can actually do, things that we can do to improve outcomes. And monthly contribution is the main one. Investment length is hard because, if you're an older individual watching this, no one can give you more time. And that's why I say, I hope that these videos, or the information, whether it's from me or from anyone else, can reach a younger audience, because that is by far the biggest asset, the biggest advantage that you have over really just about the rest of the population is your age. And if you can start as young as possible, getting this larger, getting the number of years or the number of months, getting the investment length to be longer is by far one of the most important in terms of like actual things that can make a difference and that are somewhat controllable. This is really crucial. Someone starting at 20 versus someone starting at 30, it can make a huge difference in the ending balance, even if the person starting at 30 contributes more. Starting younger is much more important than the amount of monthly contribution. But again, don't have a lot of control of the age at which you are right now, maybe watching this. Monthly contribution is, in terms of control, what you're able to control. It's one of the biggest things that you have a lot of or can have a lot of influence on. I also, let's go back. Let's look at this at like, okay, well, what if I was able to do $1,000 a month? And I was able to do that for 30 years, right? 30, 60. And I get that 10%. Now you're at 2 million. And again, we see it doesn't change too dramatically, but you only would have contributed 360,000, you would have had 2 million at the end of that period. And this is this is very powerful stuff. Just how much an account can grow, and especially towards the tail ends. And this is where most of the growth happens, is at the ending years of whatever investment length we're using. So let's see what it looks like. So if you change this to 40 years, right? So we'll say 40 times 12, that's 480, right? 480. So we're at 2 million at $1,000 a month, assuming we get 10% annually. You're at 5. Now you may have I don't know, maybe would have thought, well, if it doubles, right, that would only be, that'd be 4. But again, so much of the compounding occurs in the tail ends of these time frames. So at 40 years, right, you're at 5.5. And it's just really cool. I think it's really cool that, you know, 91% of this ending balance was not even money that you yourself contributed. It's money that was created for you um, through investment. You did not have to really do anything other than put the money aside in a particular investment that is generally going to be stocks. And it just, over time, this occurs. I think it's an amazing thing. Sorry, a lot of writing on the screen, but hopefully you guys were able to follow with that. So we ran some scenarios. Let's also talk about opportunity cost, right? So the potential benefits that are missed out when choosing one option over another. That essentially is what opportunity cost is, and this is an important concept to be aware of because it affects, it can influence kind of your psychology on day-to-day spending. It can certainly influence your mindset or psychology regarding investments. So opportunity cost is an important concept to be aware of. So let's go through a scenario. Hey, I got paid, and I've paid my bills because I've set everything automated like Torian recommended. I paid my bills. I've saved the 10% of my money, and I have some money left over, and I want a new pair of shoes, right? So I've got $200 left over, and I want a new pair of shoes. And I have no idea if these shoes are $200. They might be way more, they might be way less. I have no idea. I just grabbed a graphic for shoes. And so I've got this $200. But now that you're aware of this, and well, gosh, that $200, I want this pair of shoes. And let's just assume these are $200, right? I want this pair of shoes, but I also know that I could invest that $200 at 10% for maybe 10 years, and that would turn into $500. I would get $300 in interest. I would more than double my money in that 10 years. This is opportunity cost. I can take the $200. If I put the $200 into the pair of shoes, I've bought a very likely rapidly depreciating asset. I will not get money back, likely. I know there is a sneaker market. I'm not trying to, but in general, if you buy a pair of shoes and you wear them, they're going to decrease in value versus what you paid for them. Or I could take that $200 and put it over here. But we're human beings. We have certain wants there, and look at this person. They got paid. Right. They paid their bills. They saved their 10% already. They've got some money left over. They could buy these shoes, and you know what? Still pretty good job. You know, that's still a good job. But if you have this money left over, I would encourage you to think about opportunity cost and, well, how much really is the pair of shoes costing me? Because if I take that $200 and I put it over here, that's $200 I don't have to be compounding. We call this opportunity cost. It's kind of straightforward when I guess like I kind of explain it, but it is something to be aware of. So maybe we can come to a compromise, right? Maybe I'm going to buy these shoes instead, and they're $100, and I'm going to take the other $100 and I'm going to do the investment, right? And I still make some money. With that $100, it pays off over those 10 years, right? Like from an investment standpoint, I kind of got those shoes for free. and had, money left over. So rarely are financial decisions super binary like this. Like, well, I've got $200 left over. I can either buy the shoes or I can't. No, maybe you can come to a compromise. Maybe they're not the exact same pair of shoes. But again, just like with the gas station and the water example, I'm thirsty. I need to drink water, so I'm going to buy a bottle of water. I can buy the cheap bottle of water. It's only $1, or I can buy the kind of designer bottle of water. That's $3 or $4, right? Um, that choice to buy the $1, this pair of shoes protects the feet. There's, I would argue they're somewhat stylish, in comparison. I have no idea how much these shoes cost, but um, the point being, they accomplish the purpose, right? The cheap bottle of water and the designer bottle of water are going to accomplish the same purpose, is to alleviate thirst, right? And nourish the body with water. Um, so rarely are the decisions totally binary, in terms of I get the shoes or I can't. No, maybe you can't get the exact same shoes, but you can still get a pair of shoes and still feel good. Like, hey, like what a good financial decision. I got something that I kind of wanted. Maybe it wasn't the exact thing, but I also was able to put an additional amount of money away towards my future. And you just really want to get in a habit, establish a habit of making decisions that are generally good for you. I mean, this is good not only for finances but for your health, and like especially if you're in the cohort of in recovery or thinking about recovery, right? Just doing things that kind of rewire the brain that I am going to make a decision, I'm going to make choices that are good for me in the long run. Um, we don't have to be, although we are, I know I certainly am, I'm prone to this all or nothing decision making, like in this example. Either I buy the $200 pair of shoes, I spend all the money that I have left over, or I invest all of it, right? All or nothing. No, you can use some of it for that thing that you want. Maybe it's not the exact thing, but it's pretty close. It accomplishes the same goal, protects the feet. They look pretty stylish, right? Um, and I get to put some away. But a good decision. It's on all or nothing decision making. We're also very prone, and I don't think this is just alcoholics or addicts. I think this is really just human beings, but we definitely feel it a lot more from an emotional standpoint. I want versus it is better for me if, right? I really want something versus the logical decision that it's better for me if. And I think this is everyone. I don't think it's just alcoholics and addicts that have kind of these feelings, but we are certainly prone to feeling them a lot stronger than others. I'll say the individuals who aren't in our specific cohort. Um, so that is not necessarily even on this chart, but it's really, and I apologize, I have some information on here from previous classes. I don't want people to get confused, but it goes into, right, it goes into, I would say the main one, these main two, because decision making, we'll just see D making, right? Decision making is big in generating income, right? I'm going to make the decision to further education, further my job prospects by either getting certification, going to traditional college, or going to trade school. I am bettering my employment prospects. That is good decision making. I'm bettering the potential to generate greater amounts of income. Good decision making. I am making decisions that keep my expenses on the lower end while still getting my needs met, right? Because we are human beings. I'm not saying, live this life of complete destitution, right? But there are ways, like the water example or the shoes example, right? There are ways to reduce expenses in day-to-day decision making. And just, again, I would say, especially when it comes to expenses and what your expenses are, look at things from a percentage standpoint. The bottle of water, $1 versus $2. Instead of looking at it's only $1 more, look at it, it's 100% more. The shoes example, these shoes are $200 versus $100. The shoes are 100% more. It just sounds, at least for me, it puts it in perspective like, gosh, that 100% more. Am I getting 100% more water? Am I getting 100% more shoe? I don't feel like I am. It's been very helpful for me when I look at especially the expenses. Um, to look at it from a kind of aspect of look at expenses from a percentage, right? A percentage standpoint. It's kind of the best way I would put that there. And then we'll also want to look at debt, which we will talk about. Debt is compound interest working against you. And we saw the power of the compound interest, right? We saw the power of this calculator. When that is working against you, and that is why it is crucial, if you have debt, you need to eliminate debt as quickly as possible because you need to get compound interest. Is, the eighth wonder of the world is kind of, I believe that quote was from Albert Einstein. As the eighth wonder of the world, you do not want that working against you. And that is a major reason why the financial kind of industry is as powerful as it is because credit card companies and banks and individuals that issue debt to consumers, it is so difficult once you are in debt to get out because you have the eighth wonder of the world working against you. You have compound interest working against you. Now you need income to get out of debt, and if you don't have debt, don't go into debt, right? Just keep no bad debt. But it's vitally important to not have compounding interest working against you, and we'll talk about that on further videos. Anyways, I want to try to keep this under an hour. We're at about 45 minutes coming up on it. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments. I'd be happy to try to answer them as much as I can. And I'll put a link to the compound interest calculator in the description of the video as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.